Hey there guys, Erica here from Highway 49RC. In my last Splash episode, I mentioned that I wanted to try something kind of crazy with my rear differential. Reason being is the diff cup kind of got all wallowed out, and this hole, well, I'll show you in a minute, got all wallowed out, and the spider gear shaft is super loose in there and is no good basically. So I picked up some itty bitty needle bearings. Yeah, this is a roller needle bearing, needle roller bearing. Same thing. But let's get a little bit of a closer look here. I'll try and explain what I'm going to attempt to do today. It's going to be rather technical, but I think it's going to be pretty cool if we can succeed. So these are all my differential parts here. I've gone ahead and picked up 2 more leading edge machining diff cups. These are really nice diff cups. My only qualm about them at this point is that this hole on them is brass, or at least there's a brass insert pressed in, which is what failed on mine. So if I put this together here, the issue is this. The brass got completely worn out, and so now the output shaft slops around a bunch, and the drive shaft was just vibrating a ton. And obviously I didn't like that. Brass is a great bushing material, however, it only really works if there's an oil applied directly to it. In this case, there's not. Differential oil is not the type of oil that it needs. It needs a machine oil or motor oil type of oil. Part of the other reason that I think that this diff cup failed is that I did not have these little pieces installed. These go on the ends of these shafts here, so the spider gear goes on the shaft in the middle, and then these little supports go on the end and slide into the slots right there on the side of the diff cup. The stock Slash diff cup does not have these slots for the metal supports, so which is why I didn't put them in. But this time I'm actually going to put them in. That should hopefully make it stronger. So this here is the tiny needle bearing that I purchased. Actually, I got about 5 of them. The rest of them are in the freezer. I'll explain why in a minute. But you can see that there are little rollers on the inside of there. You may be asking yourself, what's the difference between a needle bearing and a typical ball bearing, such as this? The difference is that the ball bearing has an inner race where the needle bearing does not. The ball bearing has balls in it, and the roller bearing has little needle rollers, as you can see. So what's going to happen is I'm going to attempt to press this roller bearing into the diff cup. And then what happens is those rollers ride on the spider gear shaft. However, because it's so small, there is quite a lot of slop in it anyways, which I'm not happy about. But having a bearing with slop is going to be much better than a bushing with slop. There's going to be less friction, and so when it wobbles around, it's still going to be able to roll nice and smoothly. Now, I have mentioned putting bearings in the freezer and shrink fits. Now, what am I talking about? Well, what I'm going to attempt to do is this outer diameter here is 10 millimeters. The outer diameter of this roller bearing is also 10 millimeters. So what that means is that this bearing can fit on the inner race of the carrier bearing here, like so. It doesn't just slip on, it presses on, which is actually helpful for us. Means that I don't actually have to weld a flange onto this, which is what I was originally going to attempt to do. I'm glad I don't have to do that because it presses right into my ball bearing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bore out or drill out. I'm not sure what's going to be the best option. I'm going to do some experimenting. I need to drill out this outer protrusion, basically completely get rid of it, and get a hole slightly smaller than 10 millimeters so that I can then press the needle bearing into the diff cup. Ideally, it's going to be a close enough fit that the cold needle bearing is going to slip in while it's cold and then expand and create an interference fit without me having to press it in. That is the ideal. Whether that's going to work or not, I'm not sure. I am going to first attempt to drill it out on the lathe. Our lathe is very old, not very precise, but if I can get it to work with that, then fantastic. I may end up doing it on the mill due to the inaccuracy of the lathe, however. The issue with that is that it's difficult to center something round, to find basically the center of that hole on the mill. I have some ideas involving a dial indicator and some other things, and it's going to be a little bit of a convoluted way to try and attempt to find the hole center, but it may work. Before we get started drilling out the diff cup, I want to take a measurement of the needle bearing before it's cold and after it's cold. So this one is room temperature, and we're at 0.395 of an inch. Let's go grab a frozen one and compare that. Okay, these are fresh out the freezer. Let's pull one out if I can open the darn bag. Let's take one of these, stick it in here. And, well, it's the same damn thing. So clearly, based on the number we got before and this number, these bearings are not very precise. 0.3958 for the cold one. Let's try another one just for sake of being consistent. Okay, they really did not change that much at all. And they are cold, I assure you. But with this information, we are not going to bother trying to do a shrink fit. We are just going to attempt to create a press fit hole for these needle bearings to go into. So, since my methods of chilling the bearings is not good enough to overcome the inconsistency from bearing to bearing, I am just going to go ahead and try to do an interference fit, basically a press fit. The closest drill size to the bearings is going to be a letter W. It's undersized, it's the closest undersized drill. It is 0.386. My bearings measured 0.394, 395-ish, so it's about 8 thousandths undersized. However, drill bits, when you get down to the level of thousandths, generally do not drill a perfect sized hole. They're supposed to, but they generally don't, especially when it comes down to an inaccurate lathe like we have. So I'm going to go find a piece of scrap to drill a practice hole in and see how good of a fit that is, if it even is a fit at all, or if it's just not going to fit. I've gone ahead and cut myself a couple test pieces. Yeah, they're square, but you know what? It's a 4-jaw chuck, so whatever, it's fine. Also, apologies if you can hear the rain. It has been absolutely raining cats and dogs recently, so if you hear the noise, that's what it is. I'm not picky about this. I just want to drill a hole in a piece of aluminum because my diff cup is aluminum. I want to make sure I get consistency. And of course, I'm going to center drill first because that way I can make sure that the actual drilled hole is nice and straight and clean. And so that the drill doesn't wander, because we don't want that, of course. I wanted to be able to position the tailstock so that I could swap out for my long drill. But I don't think, unfortunately, I'm going to be able to do that. I got a slightly smaller drill. I think this is an S size drill. This is my W that I'm going to use. The reason I got a smaller size is so that I can just drill a rough hole with this first, and then use the actual size that I need to finalize it. Lock down the tailstock, and away we go. Alright, so let's hope this doesn't wobble too much. That is my smaller drill, right? Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. Okay, so it was a little bit wobbly for my liking, however, it's because this is not flat, and I really just need a test hole before I do my final test on the wasted diff cup. movement it super slowly so I don't get wobbling. Okay, let's see how that went. Back this up. I've got a bearing out here with me. That hole is too small for the bearing, unfortunately. I'm going to go grab the next size up, which is a letter X, and see if that gives me an any better size hole. So my letter X drill here is 0.397. It's about 0.02 over my bearing diameter. If nothing else works, this is a good last resort as just a simple slip fit, because since my roller bearing will press into my carrier bearing, I don't really need it to be captured by the diff cup. That is a actually very nice, relatively tight tolerance slip fit. I'm happy with that. So as a last resort, if I can't manage to get a press fit, this I will be happy with. As you can see, very nice slip fit. I don't feel a whole lot of movement in it if I try and wiggle it, which is great. There's a little bit, but not too bad. So that hopefully should be good. Yo guys, check this out. So I drilled another W hole just for the hell of it to see if I could hammer in the bearing. And check this out. I can press it in. Dude. Look at that. That is perfect. There's going to be way less resistance too on the actual diff cut because it's thin. Dude, the W is the right drill. This is incredible. Am I ever going to get that bearing back out? No. But that is really cool. And I'm basically sliding my tailstock back now because there's so much resistance. But that is more than enough resistance for a skinny little diff cup. That's going to be perfect. So with our test being as much of an overwhelming success as it was, I think it is time to put our trashed diff cup in the lathe, bore it out, see if we can't press a bearing in it. Diff cup is going in. Not too tight, just enough to hold it. Cross our fingers, wish me luck. Here we go. Go. Let's pull it out, see what she looks like. If you could hear the kind of squeaky noise, that was the brass getting cut. So it didn't end up going completely centered, but I think that will be good enough for us. I can clean that off. Looks like if I sand this like outer rough bit off, there might actually, looks like there should be enough material for me to get that bearing pressed in. Let me go clean this up real fast and then we'll come back and press it in. Alright, moment of truth guys. I've got my tailstock cranked down. I'm just going to use the chuck as a bit of an anvil. Get that centered up nice and square. Dude. Oh my god. Okay, that is crooked. by a lot. Make sure this gets pressed in, hopefully nice and square. That looks about perfect. Let's put my spider gear in. Dudes and dudettes, I think we have freaking done it. I'm speechless. I can't believe this worked. And freaking without any trouble too. Wow. Right, I'm back inside. I've done a mock assembly. I've left this off for now. It spins flat, so like the bearing is not pushing the gear too far that way. This is nice and flat, ready to be screwed on. And it works. It works. This side is going to need a little bit of shimming. I did press the bearing in a little bit farther, but even still, I think it's going to need a little bit of shimming to get some of that forward and back slop out of there. But we did it, guys. I can't believe it. That's insane. The only thing left then would be to stick this bearing on there as well, which it is going to be just the perfect height to do so. This is going to turn out so good. So with that, I say it is about time we grab one of our brand new diff cups and improve it by adding a bearing to it. So it took a hot minute, but I finally got the differential running smoothly, bearing pressed in. I originally actually had an issue that the press fit into the diff cup was too tight and caused the bearings to actually like shrink, so I couldn't actually fit the spider gear through the bearing, which was a bit of a surprise, but it just took a little bit of filing and a little bit of tweaking. I had to grind off the little nubbins on the top of those hardened steel like support pieces to get the ring gear to like sit flat and just make everything run smoothly and not bind. The gears themselves have some burrs on them and they're not really in the greatest condition, so it's a little bit rough, but I am overall super pleased, and the original slop that was in the bearing that I showed you originally is completely gone just about because of that press fit, which is like perfect, absolutely perfect, way more than I could have asked for. I'm gonna put the ring gear on here real quick, and I think that we're about done. There you have it, fully functioning differential with a needle bearing pressed into the diff cup. I don't know that anybody else has ever done this before, and if they have, please let me know, but I would like to think that I'm the first to do this. So this is just so cool, and I can't believe it went as smoothly as it did. Despite the fuss, I am very surprised at how like seamless and easily I was able to get a needle bearing into this diff cup. I really thought it would be a lot more difficult, to be honest with you, but I mean, it was pretty much a piece of cake. I didn't put any differential oil in this because I've got a friend coming over tonight and I think he'd like to see it. So I'm going to hold off on putting oil in it, and I'm going to assemble the rest of the differential and rear end of the Splash in the next episode of the Splash series, which will be episode 9. This is kind of a offshoot side episode sort of thing. I don't know how I'm going to name it really, but all that's going to get put back together in the next episode because I got to put the coolant tank on, and some of the stuff has to get taken off and put back on and fuddled around and whatever. I sure hope you guys have found this video intriguing. It's been really cool for me personally to see my crazy idea that is like, you know, far out, like why would you ever even try to do that, and actually try to do it and succeed to a reasonable amount, which, as I said, has been really, really cool for me to see, and I hope that that has been interesting for you guys as well. So yeah, with that, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure to leave a big fat thumbs up, leave a comment down below, hit that subscribe button also, and if you can, support me on Patreon, join my Discord server, and become a member of the channel as well. All those links are down in the description below, as always. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.